I remember the night like it was yesterday, the air thick with something I couldn't name. We were just talking, laughing, and then everything changed. I was on a call with my best friend, Angelina, and we were both just being ourselves, like we always did. But then, something slipped through the cracks. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something I couldn't ignore. That night, I made a decision, and it didn't feel like a choice at all. I told Max I needed space, and I didn't say it the way I usually would. I just said it, and then I left. I didn't look back. It wasn't just about him. It was about me, about the way I felt, and the way I needed to be. And I didn't know if I could explain it to anyone. That night, I broke up with Max. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was breaking anything. I just felt like I was finally being honest with myself.
So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just a breakup, it's a moment that changed everything. I was on a call with Angelina, and out of nowhere I found myself thinking about Max and the way he looked at Martin. It was like a spark, something I couldn't ignore. I realized I had been feeling something for Martin all along, and I didn't know how to tell Max. I didn't want to hurt him, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I didn't want to break up with Max, but I couldn't keep lying to myself. I was falling for Martin, and I knew I had to tell him. I just didn't know how to do it without hurting anyone. It wasn't just about feelings. It was about honesty, about who I was and who I wanted to be. I couldn't keep living a lie, even if it meant hurting someone I loved. So I told Max, and it didn't go the way I wanted. But it was the right thing to do. I had to be true to myself, even if it meant losing someone I cared about. And now I'm trying to figure out if I was AITAH for doing it. Was it selfish? Was it cruel? Or was it just the honest thing to do? You might think this is just a story about a breakup, but it's really about how we all carry the weight of the people we love, even when we don't know what to do with it. Martin was always there, like a steady light in the dark. He didn't just know me. He saw me in ways I didn't even know I needed to be seen. You don't have to understand it all to care. You just have to see how someone else's pain feels like your own, even if you're not sure why. This isn't just about me. It's about the quiet, invisible threads that connect us all, how we hold each other when we don't know how to hold ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you should care. Because even if you don't know what it's like to feel this way, you know what it's like to feel alone. We were talking about everything, school, life, just being kids. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. He said he was in love with Martin, not just friends, but in love with him. I didn't know what to say. I had known for a while that Martin was into guys, but I never thought it would be me. I felt like the ground was shaking beneath me. I couldn't believe he was saying this to me, of all people. I didn't know how to react. I just felt so lost, like everything I thought I knew about our relationship was falling apart. I couldn't even look at him the same way anymore. I realized then that I had to make a choice, not just about him, but about myself. I couldn't keep pretending things were the same. I needed to be honest with him, with myself, and with my feelings. Even though it hurt, I knew I had to break up with him. Not just because of what he said, but because I realized I had been holding on to something that wasn't healthy for me. So here's the thing, I didn't just fall for Max. I fell for the way he laughed, the way he looked at me, the way he made me feel like I was the only person in the world. But then I realized something. Max made me feel like I was missing out on something, like I was just waiting. And that's not fair to me or to him. Martin saw me and he didn't try to change me. He just saw me. And that's why I trusted him. Because he never made me feel like I had to be anything but myself. So when I broke up with Max, it wasn't because I didn't like him. It was because I didn't want to be with someone who didn't see me the way I wanted to be seen. And you know what? It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I didn't do it for anyone else. I did it for me. We were just talking about life, about everything. Then out of nowhere, Max called. He was nervous, quiet, and it was like the air shifted. I could feel it before he even said a word. He said he needed to talk, that he had something important to say. I didn't know what to expect. I just nodded, trying to stay calm, even though my heart was racing. He said he wasn't straight. He said he's been in love with me for a long time, and that he couldn't be with me if he wasn't sure about his feelings. It broke my heart. I didn't know how to react. I was angry, confused, hurt. I just wanted to scream, but all I could do was sit there and listen as he told me he was breaking up with me. I didn't cry, not right then. I just sat there breathing, trying to process everything. The silence felt louder than any sound. So the next step is figuring out how the relationship actually works. I mean, how do we even know what's real? Max and I were dating, but sometimes I felt like we were just going through the motions. I tried to be honest with myself. I asked myself, is this love, or am I just used to being with someone? I was on a call with Angelina, and she started talking about how she and her boyfriend had been struggling. She mentioned that he'd been acting distant, and she didn't know if he was still in love with her. I felt this strange sense of déjà vu, like I was watching a movie I hadn't seen yet. At first I tried to brush it off, telling her I was fine. But something in her voice made me realize how much I had been holding in. I hadn't been sleeping well, and I kept thinking about Max, about the way he'd been lately, and how I wasn't sure if I loved him anymore. That night I stayed up thinking. I didn't want to hurt Max, but I also couldn't ignore how much I'd been feeling. I realized that maybe I didn't want to be in a relationship that wasn't giving me what I needed. I didn't want to be someone who stayed just because I was scared. In the end, I decided to talk to Max. I told him I needed to figure things out, that I didn't know if I loved him anymore. I didn't say I was breaking up, but I didn't promise anything either. I just wanted to be honest, even if it hurt. I don't know what happened next, but I know that moment changed everything. It wasn't just about Max, it was about me, about learning to trust my feelings, even when they scared me. And in the end, that's what matters most. I remember the way the silence felt, like it was holding its breath. It wasn't just the pause between words, it was the weight of something I couldn't name, something that made my chest ache like I'd lost a part of myself. There was this flicker of understanding in Martin's eyes, like he saw through the layers of everything I wasn't saying. He didn't need me to explain. I just needed him to hold me, even if it was just for a moment. I kept thinking about the way we used to laugh, how we'd talk for hours about nothing, and how that kind of connection felt like a language only we could understand. Now, it felt like a bridge I was walking away from piece by piece. I didn't know if I was breaking anything or just breaking free. All I knew was that the way I felt inside didn't match the way I was living, and I had to make a choice, even if it hurt. There was a part of me that wondered if I'd ever feel that same connection again, or if I'd just be left with the echo of what once was, like a song that's long faded but still lingers in the air. So I was on a call with Angelina, and we were just talking about everything, school, life, the usual. But then Max called, and he was acting like everything was fine, even though I could tell something was off. He said he was just checking in, but it felt like he was trying to avoid a conversation. I didn't know what to make of it, but something about his tone made me feel like he wasn't really there. Later, when I told Martin about it, he just nodded like he already knew. He said, "You don't have to say anything, just feel what you feel." And that's when I realized I wasn't alone in feeling like something was wrong. I realized that sometimes, the most important conversations aren't the ones we expect. They're the ones we're forced to have when everything feels like it's falling apart. And maybe that's the dumbest analogy I've ever made, but it's the only one that feels true. I told Angelina everything, how I felt about Max, how I cared for him, how much I didn't want to be the one to end things. And then I said, I think I'm in love with Martin. It wasn't a joke, it wasn't a phase, it wasn't a lie. It was just the truth. I didn't know how to say it, I didn't know how to explain it. But the moment I said it out loud, it felt like the weight of the whole world had lifted off my chest. It wasn't just relief, it was clarity. You're going to want to see this. The Apple AirPods 2nd generation, link and QR code are right on screen and down in the description. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I didn't tell Max right away. I didn't want to hurt him. I wanted to give him time. But the truth is, I didn't know if he would ever understand. I didn't know if he would ever see me the way I saw him. I told myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was being honest, that I was finally being true to myself, but there was still so much fear, so much uncertainty, so much not knowing. But even in the fear, there was a quiet kind of strength. A strength that came from knowing that I had made a choice, and that choice was mine to make. Even if it hurt, even if it changed everything. I used to think that relationships were about trust, but then I realized trust is just the beginning. It's not enough to trust someone, you have to know they're not going to hurt you, not just emotionally, but in the way that makes you feel like you're not even real anymore. I never wanted to be the one to end things. I didn't want to hurt Max, but I couldn't keep pretending that what we had was real. I started to feel like I was just a backup plan, not the main character in my own life. People say you can't trust someone who lies, but I think what I couldn't trust was myself. I was scared to admit that I didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who didn't see me. I wanted someone who saw me, and that was never going to be Max. I didn't want to be the person who waited for someone else to decide if they wanted to be with me. I wanted to be the person who chose to be with someone who actually saw me. And that choice wasn't easy, but it was mine. Maybe I'm not the strongest person, but I'm learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not because you're afraid, but because you know what you want and you're not going to settle for anything less. I thought I was being brave, but the truth is I was scared. Scared of what this meant for me, scared of what it meant for us. Max and I were so close, but I realized I was holding on to something that wasn't mine to keep. I didn't want to hurt him, but I couldn't keep pretending I felt the same. Martin was the only one who really understood. He didn't need me to explain. He just knew I was hurting, and he was there to hold me when I couldn't hold myself. I told Max I couldn't be with him anymore, and for a moment I saw the pain in his eyes. But I also saw the truth. He was never the one I loved. It wasn't easy, but I know I did the right thing. I broke up with him because I loved myself more than I loved someone who wasn't meant to be with me. I realized the truth wasn't just in the words he said, but in the silence between them. It was like the air had gotten heavier and I couldn't breathe. Martin had always been there for me, but now I felt like I was living in two worlds, one with Max and one with him. I didn't know how to choose. I kept pretending I could keep everything together, but the cracks were getting bigger. I couldn't hide from the fact that I was hurting, and I didn't know how to fix it. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the breakup. It's realizing that the person you trusted most might not be the one who understands you anymore. I don't know if I'm making the right choice, but I know I can't keep pretending everything's okay. I have to face it, even if it hurts. We were laughing, just being silly, when Max walked in and said something that made me freeze. It was like he'd said something that wasn't even about us, but it landed like a punch in the gut. He said something about Martin and me like he was trying to be funny, but it felt like he was trying to put me in a box. I didn't know how to respond because it wasn't even about me. It was about how he saw me. After the call, I sat in silence, replaying what he said in my head. I didn't know if I was mad at him or myself. All I knew was that I felt seen in a way that wasn't real. That night I texted Martin and he showed up at my door. He didn't say much, just sat with me, and I realized that the only truth I needed was the one I already knew. I was in love with someone else. I didn't break up with Max because I wanted to, because I knew I couldn't. I broke up with him because I finally understood that love isn't about who you're with, but who you are. I heard Martin's voice crack, like a record skipping, and I knew something was wrong. His words were sharp, like broken glass, and I could feel the weight of the truth pressing down on me. I looked at my phone, still on the call with Angelina, and I felt like I was trapped between two worlds, one collapsing, the other watching in silence. I wanted to scream, to run, to tell them everything, but the words stuck in my throat, like they'd been swallowed by the silence that had grown too loud. I could feel the air in the room shift, like the world had paused just to let the truth settle, and I was the only one left standing in the wreckage. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just breaking up with Max. I was breaking something inside me that I didn't even know I had. I heard him say it, not in a way that made me feel like I was being punished, but in a way that made me feel like I was the problem. Like I was the reason he couldn't be with me anymore. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. My heart felt like it was being pulled in two different directions, neither of them safe. I tried to ask him why, but he just said, "I can't be with you anymore," and then he hung up. I didn't even get to say anything. It was like the world just stopped. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I felt like I was drowning, and no one was there to pull me out. All I could think was, why did this have to happen? I just wanted to know if there was a way to fix this, if there was even a chance he'd come back. But I knew deep down that maybe some things just don't get fixed. I didn't know how to tell him. I felt like I was losing a part of myself, and the guilt was like a heavy weight on my chest. Every time I looked at him, I felt like I was betraying the person I really loved. Martin was there for me always, but I couldn't explain why I was breaking up with Max. I just couldn't. It felt like I was telling him something that wasn't true, like I was lying to the person who knew me best. I tried to make it seem like it was for the best, but I didn't believe it. I felt like I was doing the right thing, but every part of me was screaming that I was making the wrong one. The hardest part wasn't breaking up. It was pretending that I wasn't still in love with him. Every time I saw him, I felt like I was standing in front of a mirror, and all I could see was the person I wanted to be, not the one I was. Even now, I don't know if I did the right thing. I just know that I did it because I thought I had to. And that's the part that hurts the most. I think about how we humans, with all our flaws and quirks, managed to figure out that love isn't just about the people we're with, but also the ones we're connected to in ways we don't always understand. We built bridges with words, with trust, with silence sometimes, and with the courage to say I don't know when the truth is too heavy to carry alone. Maybe it's not about being right or wrong, but about being honest with the people who matter most, even if it hurts. And maybe that's how we figured it out, not by being perfect but by being human, and letting the truth come out, even if it means breaking things apart. We didn't have all the answers, but we kept asking the right questions, even when the answers made our hearts ache. I told Angelina about Max and she said, "Wait, you're dating Max? But he's got a boyfriend." I froze. I hadn't realized Max was in a relationship. I had no idea he was gay, I just thought he was confused. I didn't know Max was with someone. I didn't know he was gay, I just thought he was confused. I didn't know he was dating another guy. I didn't know he had a boyfriend. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to face the truth. I wanted to keep pretending like everything was okay, like nothing had changed, like I could still be with him. But then I thought about Martin, about how he's been there for me, about how I trusted him, and I realized maybe I should have asked him. Maybe I should have known. Maybe I should have been more aware. I didn't know Max was with someone. I didn't know he was gay. I didn't know he had a boyfriend, and now I'm wondering if I should have known. Sometimes I wonder, what if we had just let it happen? What if we didn't stop ourselves? What if we let this thing grow? What if we played with it like it was something we could control? I know it sounds selfish, but I can't help but think, what if we had done this on purpose? What if we were the ones making it happen, not just reacting to it? It's like I'm stuck in this loop, replaying the moment over and over, wondering if I made the right. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.